Hey, I'm Samson Folk, and I'm joined by who some of you may remember, Josh Codinera, professional scout, and we're here to do a bit of scouting, a bit of film breakdown, and a whole lot of talking about Gradey Dick. So the background, obviously, is that we talked Gradey Dick prior to the draft. Your insights and also like the stats you pulled, your critiques, and I guess what you were listing as his accolades informed what I thought of Gradey Dick. He ended up falling to the Raptors, which was a pretty big deal, at least for a guy like me. It made Trey yell out, "Messiah's back!" which was pretty good. And you rated him as a top five player in the draft. And people who listen to my draft coverage knows that was a big deal. I've cited it many times. He's a Toronto Raptor. So let's just start off first thing. We have our professional scout, Josh Codinera. Many of you love him. What have you thought of the Raptors rookie so far?
I think he's been great. Obviously, the shot making is not there yet, but as far as like all the things that we talked about, in as far as like being able to shoot off different actions, the shot prep, the moving into space and understanding rotations, how to make rotations on offense as well as defense, I think it's been there. Just kind of the shot making is a little bit off as far as like being able to be that guy that spaces the floor for the Raptors and the slot guy and the corner man that like creates space for like guys like Scotty and Pascal.
I think it's probably easier to scout an NBA player to succeed at the NBA level than it is a high school or college player to succeed at the
Yeah.
NBA level. So, from your point of view, when you're watching college, how do you reckon with a player who hits shots
Mhm.
prior and then is having a stretch where a lot of the decision making, a lot of the process is really high level,
Yeah.
but the shots aren't falling? How do you approach that as a scout trying to project what's going to happen going forward?
Yeah, so like at the college level, the court's much smaller. The 3-point line is closer. There's less length. There's less athleticism coming at you. With Grady, it felt like he was kind of the main creator and the main person within an action for Kansas on offense. So they're creating shots for him out of like pin downs or stuff like that. Whereas like in the NBA right now, he's kind of more of like the off-ball guy, trying to occupy the help defense a little bit more, kind of taking more spot up threes as opposed to like trying to get away from guys that are defending you on like lock and trail or trying to like top block you so that you're not able to get around the screen. He and it looks like he's getting better. He's better at like shooting off, getting that flow, getting rhythm into his shot where it's like I'm stepping in off like a left right gather or a right left gather, curling to the rim so that it's like, he does a really great job with his inside foot turning towards the basket as he's getting the ball. And he can just get under his shot better. Whereas like he's not getting as much like that defense where and he's spacing the floor and spotting up. He's not getting that rhythm into his shot, so you could see why the shot making isn't there as much. I think once he kind of figures out his timing a little bit better, when he can like kind of step away, space out, and then step into the shot a little bit better, get his legs under him better, and get under his shot, it'll be much better for as far as like energy transfer goes and being able to make shots.
I think there's a stark contrast, and this is something I picked up watching Grady at court level, like sideline,
Mhm.
baseline before the games, is that when he's warming up, he's really looking after finding his own rhythm, even in the spot up stuff. Like, yes, when they're walking through some of their drills, they're saying, like, I'm going to send you downhill.
Mhm.
You got to, like, shove me and try and get uphill, catch, hit the shot. It's easy to find your rhythm when you're in motion if that's what you need as a shooter. A lot of guys need no rhythm, need to quiet everything down, but he's a guy who needs to find his rhythm. And from a shot mechanics standpoint, why do you think that's so important?
Like I was saying earlier, it's like he gets under his shot better. He's more of like a upright long shooter as opposed to like having like really compact mechanics that like let's say Fred Van Fleet has. With Grady, he's that almost like a two motion shooter, kind of his set point a little bit higher where it's like there's more of a sling and there's that little extra motion. And I kind of like look at shots in a way that it's different points of failure in your shot. So when you have that extra motion, that's just extra energy that you lose. But when you're in momentum, you could decelerate in the air with your upper body and then use that like if you're just using your energy from that like sling, and then you could use your easier to use your touch out of that.
He got called for the travel in the first one. but then came back the next play. You want to talk about a shooter getting sent downhill. He couldn't come up above the break. In preseason, they sent him downhill, and he's getting high-fived, fading from 16 feet twice. He
Mhm.
hits it twice.
Mhm.
They call it travel the first time, but it's like he can hit those more difficult shots because of this added motion, and he can because when you're compact, you have to stay compact.
Yes.
When you have all that other stuff going on, Kobe is a really good example. Not that Grady's Kobe, nobody freak out, but Kobe's a really good example of like elevating, maintaining like the shot is going crazy below the chest.
Yes.
Everything is out of whack, but just holding it up here.
Yeah.
And so Grady is supposed to have like a much higher baseline as a spot up shooter than like Kobe did, for example.
Yeah.
And he probably won't have the, tough shot maker thing, but it's just to kind of say like there's a possibility for him to become a very good tough shot maker. And evidenced by this is the fact that so far Grady on his guarded
Yes.
3-point jumpers is shooting 40%.
Yes.
What is he shooting on his unguarded jumpers?
If I remember correctly, it's like probably like 27% on unguarded threes. And it's surprising because he's a really good shooter. And at the college level, he's a really good shooter. But I think it's just, yeah, being able to judge at distance, being able to like be ready in those spot up situations rather than like him off movement. Like he hit that shot, was it Philly, where he came off like I think it was staggered, throw head dribble.
Kelly tried. Oh,
Mhm.
you're talking about okay. He came out of Chicago.
Mhm.
Yes,
Yes.
he came out
Yeah.
of Chicago. Throw ahead, had pressure from behind, has a dig down in front of him, and split the difference between the two. Rose up and hit like a 17 footer.
Yeah, and you could see him get into the rhythm with that left right gather. The left inside foot is aligning with the rim, which aligns his body, and then he has that high set point, and then it's just touch at that point, and he has really great touch.
And that's with that forward momentum, finding that rhythm. And then there's another play when I believe it's Kelly Oubre Jr. tries to shoot the gap on him off of a pin down.
Yes.
And so Grady kind of works himself backwards and catches in rhythm going backwards and hits. That's also one I think it's your favorite play that we've seen so far is like they Grady comes out of the corner, handoff with Scotty. He moves the ball on
It's Flynn.
to Malachi.
Hmm.
Malachi attacks middle. Grady's forming up to space out and catches in rhythm going sideways, collects himself.
Yeah.
But this is all under motion. Like we were really impressed and Scotty gave up the handoff, then sprinted back to a spot and caught
Yes.
and hit. Like
Yes.
that was
Yeah.
incredible. And that's not something you expect from guys
Yeah.
like Scotty and Pascal over the
Hmm.
past couple of years is these motion threes.
Hmm.
But for Grady, that's the norm.
Yeah. He has really great footwork as far as like being able to shoot off varied actions or varied footwork. So it's like going right, he goes left right, going left, he goes right left to kind of align his body going to the bas towards the and align his shoulder to the rim, as well as like a quick hop catch or backpedal into like a shot or like backpedal and then oh there's space in front of me to really like move have like forward momentum and get under my shot. He could do that as well, like that shot we just described, which is amazing. So
I find him so impressive. And so we're talking about the shots, the mechanics.
mhm,
The most impressive skill, like the most important skill is making the shot, of course, but I would say the skill that Grady has that stands above the rest when compared to other players is finding shots out of nothing. Just being on the floor and like, yes, shot prep is important, but your motion before everything happens, reading off of other players
yeah.
and getting open. As far as from Kansas to Toronto, what have you seen?
I think he's done the same. It's just obviously like you said, the shot's not going in. But as far as being able to like, okay, I could see this guy zoning me up on the weak side. I'm just gonna cut into space, and I could see that he's gonna come with me, so that the guy beside me has that corner shot, or being able to like read how he can occupy the weak side as well, just being able to like cut along the baseline and he can curl up off into a lift. Yeah, he's very good at that. Essentially, yeah.
Reading the floor is one of the most important things for any player.
Mm,
But and it's important for a guy like Ben Simmons, for example, struggled so much to return back because his room for error is so small in
mhm,
picking his spots because he operates in a smaller
yeah,
space. Grady is a guy who has so much space to work in because of his shot and still operates with like such little room for like margin for error because his decision making is always so good.
yeah,
If there's an opportunity for a cut, like you said, to collapse the weak side, he'll do it.
Yeah.
If he's the guy who's having the weak side glass for him and it does so that, the corner isn't so available, he has to lift, like
Yeah.
shake up on a pick and roll,
Yeah.
he does it. If it's like baseline cuts are available, everything is working really well for him as far as getting open. What is your confidence metric on the shots starting to fall?
Pretty high. I feel like he'll figure it out as far as like how now I'm only getting those spot up shots, then I'm gonna be able to, and he has to knock it down because as far as like guys that can play out of the slots and also play at the corners and to space the floor for the team, there's only a few guys on the team right now that could kind of consistently do it, and I think he has to be that guy, and I think as far as like considering the footwork, the Kansas stuff, the Sunrise Christian stuff, I think he'll be able to reach it.
He's impressed me a ton. Before we talk about some of the on-ball chops, some of the passing that's really impressed you. I know you love the like baseline to
Yeah.
above the break, but defensively,
Mhm.
I asked Darko before his big game against Philly, like, is there maybe room for Grady in this game because of Philly might have trouble like picking on him,
Mhm.
and the Raptors need shooting always. It ended up that Philly went out of their way to pick on him for okay offense, but Grady was a heat pump on the other end.
Yeah.
What have you made of his defensive acumen? I guess we're 8 games into his career.
Changing directions is not that great for him, but as far as like being able as an off-ball defender, I think he's been really smart as far as like where his position is. He had that charge against Giannis. And I always felt like, especially at Kansas, watching him a ton, was that he reads the shell well and places he can kind of put himself in position to either like force another pass or just take up space where it's just kind of hard. And in the college game as well, the court is smaller, so he takes up a lot much more space than guys that typically are shooters his side, or like shooters in general in at the college level. So I think being, what, 6'8", 6'9", and having like that size, he takes up a lot more space, and I think just being able to cover more ground, I think that will come over time as he gets more comfortable with the NBA game and with his timing and whatnot.
I think it's the same thing as it was in summer league. The people who didn't get to see him at Kansas,
Mhm.
it it popped immediately. You saw him miss on some stuff,
Mhm.
but it's a good thing, I think. Like it's a good thing offensively when you couldn't tell where the pass was going. Like the ball handler beat the defender and they beat the viewer. That's incredible. It's a really good thing because you have the bird's eye view. You're watching the defense. If Grady is covering the same spots that you, the viewer, typically want him to cover,
Yeah.
you can see what he's trying to do.
Yeah.
And he did a fantastic job, albeit missing on some of them at Summer League. And when he's lower in the defense or on the weak side, I
Yes.
think he fills space really well. He has a really great idea of this works both on people ask this question all the time,
Mhm.
like you have such a good understanding of offensive spacing, why don't you, or as a cutter
Yes.
offensively,
Mhm.
why are you a guy who falls asleep on defense?
Defense. Yeah.
And there's like a dichotomy between those two things, but Grady is a guy who fulfills both.
Both.
he
Yeah.
he reads the floor and he maps the court, I think, at a high level on both ends. And yeah, space is tough.
Yeah.
Screens have been tough,
Yes.
but he'll come around.
I think so. I like I don't see him being really that great on the perimeter. I think you probably gonna have to hide him a little bit on like shooters or guys that are a little that do play lower. I think he takes up gaps really well. In his first shift against Dallas the other day. I thought he was really good at the nail. I thought he one pass away, he got a couple deflections, and I think his hands are really good in those spots as well. So I think as far as like where he projects as a defender, I don't think he's going to be like super above average or all defense or anything like that. But I think you could be like starter level. You're comfortable with him in the starting lineup, especially with his ability on offense.
There's a route to success, obviously, if you read the floor well and if you're efficient with your movements and if you read, like, you're really tight with your scouting report on other players. You know their sensibilities, what
Yes.
their tendencies, and that helps you cheat.
Mhm.
And every time you cheat on an NBA court, you're trying to like have there's like an 85% chance that I'm correct. And the best guys, they're like, they know the scouting report, they see tendencies, and then they contextualize it all in a split second. And they're like 95, 98% in between there. Right read, right read, right read. Gradey, you would hope he gets there, and that helps him figure out like everything in the help side, everything off ball. And it helps him give cushion to the players when he's in space that he needs to play them into their weaknesses if they can. And so that's where he has to succeed because the feet are never going to be blistering. But small guards, basically, it's almost impossible for you to override this stuff. But Gradey's huge for a shooter that can get into the different types of shots that he does. He's massive, so that helps a lot because being big on defense, as everyone understands, it's a huge deal. Okay, attacking closeouts. He gets a ton of them. We're talking about on ball creation, second side stuff, attacking a tilted defense. What have you made about identifying the top foot, making those progressive reads? Because this was something myself, yourself, everybody was excited about. You see every once in a while, a game pops off. You're like, Gradey had 4 assists.
Yeah, like I think when we talked about pre-draft, as far as like what he does well as a passer, I think when he does get a hard closeout, he has a little bit of wiggle. Like it's not anything great, but he does have that little bit of flexibility that he could like kind of show with a pump fake and go around a guy, or like use like a body jab and get around a guy. And then he's okay with like one or two dribbles attacking space. um and he has those awesome in-air passes that I thought that really stuck out to me at Kansas, that and I think he did a couple times already, um or he attacks a baseline, goes off 2 feet, jumps in the air, and then he sees the defense sinking in, and then he could pick a guy on the opposite side, either in the corner or the slot. And um I think as far as like um shot making as well, I think he has the ability to decel into like 1-2 dribble pull-ups. And I just don't think we've seen it yet, but he's really good at like when there's an action created for him, maintaining that advantage that action is created. So there's another play that I can think of where he got Malachi, kind of in the similar way, where he curled around the screen, caught, and I don't know if it was like a pump fake and a left hand dribble, or if it was just like a um, catch, throw head dribble, and then sink in that first level and then hit Malachi with like a left hand pass. I think that's the stuff he can do off the dribble and attacking his man. And another one is where against Dallas, he kind of caught in the triple threat, did a quick pump to get Maxi Kleber to lift up a little bit and attacked. Then he hit him with a body bump, and I was like, wow, I've never seen this before. But he hit him, it created some space, and he had basically it just came off the rim, but it felt like that was like a perfect shot for him.
You notice this with if anybody out, many people listen to Love Played Pickup. The people who are comfortable. It's it's unfair to some degree because the better players are the ones who do cheaper stuff.
Yes.
But you play against like a guy who only played high school or something. They're not gonna give you an offensive foul, not really. You play against a college guard, they're gonna give you everything, but they can extend outside themselves for shoves and pushes and pulls and still stay balanced.
And
Yeah,
stay
stay tight.
compact. Yeah.
And Gradey on that play against Maxi Kleber, who is like a very good defender. He's actually the inspiration for this tattoo, believe it or not. As crazy as that sounds, um, getting him, he moved him, man.
Yes.
And that's kind of like the underrated thing. It's like Gradey has to put on weight, yes, but he got heavy feet. He's also got heavy legs. He
Yes.
can also there now Paul Pierce wasn't the quickest guy his whole career, but if you're heavy and you know how to move, you'll be able to move other guys. That gave me kind of like an insight into maybe there's like some strength creation in the future for Gradey, which is, we see a guy like there's a million different players who they get some like pinch post action every once in a while as a wing. And Gradey is a guy who seeing that, you wonder, there might be something in the future as far as that goes.
Maybe it's that fast to slow thing that Luca has. I'm not saying he's Luca, right? That's crazy. But like being able to do that in tight spaces, being able to create your shot, like just kind of like use your momentum, and then well, he already is so good at decelling into his shot. I don't see why not with his legs that he can like either like bump with his and maintain that balance with his body, or kind of just be able to decel into a person. Kind of like the way that, well, who else does that? I guess Paul George or Jalen Brunson does, and then pull up and then use that length to shoot over a guy. Maybe something, I don't know.
That's where the work comes in. Like he has to do like 12,000 reps on like that bump and pull, and then like with the other shoulder, right? Because I would guess that Grady's much more comfortable with that left arm than he is with his right, and then gathering back. But I mean, this is the stuff we'll see develop over the course of his career. Another thing I want to talk about, we discussed how he's not like an elite in air guy.
Mhm.
He works with what he can, but we've seen a few really impressive finishes as far as like control, pacing, and English he's able to put on. What have you made of his like work around the basket early on?
Yeah, I thought he's definitely more of a 2 foot jumper. Um, so when he does go off two, there's a little bit more flexibility he can use to go around the rim. I think there's that one play where he pumped, attacked middle, and then he finished with his left. But you could see that little bit of flexibility he has to like just change an angle a little bit. And then as far as like his touch, he has finger rolls with either hand. Um,
He had the one where he went the inside
yes.
English with the left
Mhm.
from the baseline
Yeah.
too. Like
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like little things that he can do that maybe most shooters can't do, and it takes him from like, okay, this guy's a movement shooter, but a guy that can be a movement shooter plus, oh, I can attack a closeout, oh, I can make a passing read, oh, I can attack and make a dump off. There's just a lot of things that Grady does that's kind of just is there's that baseline of a movement shooter, and then there's this compounds different cool skill sets that he has.
skill tree, like skill tree basketball. You have to be able to do. It's like any video game you ever played. You see like this one skill, and you say like, "Oh man, I wish I could do that." But you have to see other skills. You have to unlock those to get to that point. And there's a lot of stuff that Grady, as a passer who reads the defense extremely well, he gets to make some of those reads because he gets these big closeouts, advantage closeouts. But if he's like a guy who live dribble, can get an empty side, pick and roll, can really read like different defensive responses if guys play at the level, maybe if guys are playing drop. There's a lot of different things he can do to manipulate, especially going middle, right? So we'll see how that kind of stuff manifests.
Mhm.
But this is something that, I talked to Darko about maybe like a week ago, where he was talking about Grady being a guy who they see a future where he spends time on ball. He isn't just a shooter. And to echo Bobby Webster after he got drafted, he said, "We had Grady in a group of his own. They didn't consider him an
Mhm.
off-ball guy." A lot of the stuff that you said are the realities and the attributes of his game have immediately come true. The only thing we're waiting on is the jumper and shots to fall in. But that's easy. That's very easy to analyze. Shot go in, good. Scotty Barnes currently shooting an insane percentage from the field. Shot go in, good. Does he have more shooting talent than Grady? Probably not. But we have to try and look at what is motivating Grady's successes, what's motivating the stuff that's lagging behind a little bit. And before we get out of here, any final thoughts on Grady for the people who are watching?
Obviously, I don't see the primary creator, secondary creator, but tertiary creator, secondary creator. There's that possibility. I do. Another thing that I really like about Grady is his rebounding.
Oh,
I think we totally forgot about that.
yeah.
But he's a really good like anticipating where a shot's gonna go and being able to stabilize in air. And he's super like his body is long that allows him to just kind and he's strong. So like he's able to kind of like maintain that like vertical.
His core strength contributes to in-air passing, of
Mhm.
course, because if you don't have core strength, you can't outweight the
Yes.
defenders. His core strength also is for like maintaining form to keep everything square up top,
Yes.
and his core strength is he explodes to the ball, man.
Yeah, and it's fun. Like I was even thinking about this. Maybe you just kind of like let him like play along the baseline, kind of like a Danny Green, with that like that Danny Green cut when you have like Scotty in the like playing out of the post and kind of like Danny Green cut into the strong side, and he can like either be a movement shooter or like a cutter, or like if Scotty kicks it out to like another shooter that's on the strong side already, he can like you can have him crash the board. And he also helps like always, like he always boxes out his man as well. So as far as like being able to maintain that shell and being able to um create that space to help guys get a rebound or be the guy that rebounds, I think he's really helpful in closing possession.
On the fast break going back, transition defense makes the guy pick up the ball about 6 feet earlier than you wanted to,
Mhm.
and maybe like force the read a little bit quicker and make sure that there's more air under the pass. So not only do you get to turn around and kind of contest, but the elite athletes like Scotty Barnes, OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, who are getting back,
Mhm.
they have more time with the air under the ball.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of good stuff. I know people are probably saying like, well, he's not shooting well. And I get it.
Yeah.
And I know we probably sound like schmucks celebrating all these little things, but I do the equivalent of scouting work at the NBA level. I really dive into these guys. We watch a lot of basketball, and I can't, express enough that Gradey is a little things king. He just does so many cool things on the court.
Basketball sicko stuff, so it's just it's the little things that you pick up on. It's like, yo, that's interesting,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's been fun to see how those little things can compound into like Grady as like who I have as like a high-end starter at one day, um and being a real like maybe like a star in his role. I think the little things that are showing up are gonna end up being able to move forward. I think moving forward, I think he's gonna be awesome.
Nothing is as important as hitting a shot ever. But the ball goes to one guy at a time. The defense responds.
Mm.
You help create spacing. You help create extra possessions. You help eventually create your own shots. There's a million different things to do on the floor at any given time,
Yeah.
and Gradey really embodies that more so than more so than any player I've
Yeah.
ever seen the Raptors
Yeah.
draft,
Yeah.
and especially for a Raptors team that wants to build around a wing in Scotty Barnes. Like we'll see what happens with the team in the future, but
Mhm.
Scotty's start to the year, firstly, and Gradey doing everything, imagining how those two pair together.
Oh, yeah. Fun.
Like,
Yes.
like the Raptors, for anything that's happened as far as team building, I know some people have been upset with like the front office, what has happened. Scotty popping off like this, getting Gradey at 13,
Yes.
it erases having guys these good who project to fit as well as they do. It puts them in a really good spot. Josh, thank you for coming on, man.
It's always fun to do these, and I'd love to come on again and talk more Grady or whoever else in the future. So I really appreciate you, brother.
This guy has the credentials to critique jump shots. He is a heat pump, man. Okay. To anybody listening, thanks for hopping on. We appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe at raptorsrepublic.com. That's how we keep the website alive. That's how I get paid. Please and thanks if you enjoy the work and if you have the means. Subscribe, the free one, on YouTube. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers. And like the video, it helps suggest more in-depth, scout-adjacent talk to people who might not get this type of analysis. And, the hope is that people learn or enjoy the more in-depth looks that helps hopefully widen their appreciation for the game. Adam Silver just did an interview with JJ Redick where he said he hopes that media does a better job talking about, the intricacies of the game. And that's kind of what we're trying to do here, Josh. Thank you. Listeners, thank you. Okay, let's go grab some food.